Have you ever heard of the Bellium? I asked daringly, looking over the campfire. The children from the Girl Scout troop all shook their heads and leaned in close, anticipating the rest of the story that was to come. It was a hot summer night at a Girl Scouts camp just like this one. The sun had just started to set while the girls were wrapping up their campfire. They were eating s'mores when one of the girls suddenly jumped up and screamed. The other girls watched and laughed as dozens of spiders fell on her head. One of the girls let out a loud, "Ew," causing me to giggle before continuing the spooky tale. Well, she didn't know why all the other girls were laughing until she looked closer and saw that they were made of plastic. "What a scaredy cat," one girl shouted. "I can't believe you thought it was real," laughed another. The girl, furious and upset, ran away from the campfire in tears. When the other girls went back to their bunks for the night, the girl that they had pranked was nowhere to be found. Instead, there was an ominous letter laying in the middle of the floor that warned them of their future karma. The leader of the troop, the one who had came up with the prank, gave it a mere laugh and threw it away. And then she and the other girls got changed into their pajamas for a movie night. As all youngsters do sometime in their life, the girls decided to sneak a scary movie into their cabin. The girls situated themselves at the TV and they began to watch. Eventually, the movie was so loud that the counselors next door could hear it. They came in and they confiscated the movie, scolding the girls and telling them to all go to bed. But again, as all youngsters do, the girls had a backup, and they started watching once again. This time, the movie was quieter, but it was still at a higher volume than most shows. As they bundled back up with blankets and snacks, they didn't notice the sounds coming from the forest surrounding the cabin. The movie was so loud, in fact, that they didn't hear anything at all. The camp leaders had no idea what was going on when they heard screaming coming from cabin number 9. They thought the girls had gone back to watching their scary movie. They decided it was too late to punish them now, and that they would have a talk in the morning. But for those girls in cabin number 9, morning never came. They were all found dead in the woods, hunted by some creature that no man had ever seen. The lone survivor was the girl who had been pranked earlier in the night. They found her rocking back and forth in the corner of the cabin, with a smile on her face, repeating, "Bellium, Bellium, Bellium." As I uttered those words, a figure leapt out of the woods. The girls ran off, screaming about the monster coming to get them. The creature doubled over in laughter and removed his mask, hugging me with a grin, and Dominic was always willing to lend a helping hand. We made our way back to the counselor's cabin with grins on our faces. Another one of the female counselors leaned over her magazine and asked, "What was all that screaming about? And you get them with another one of your stories." I laughed a little and slung my arm around Dominic's shoulders. "Yep, and thanks to this guy, it really came to life," I cooed with a wink. "You're gonna give those girls nightmares," the girl hissed in response, but it was clear she wasn't truly angry. All of us counselors got amusement from watching the girls beg for scary stories at night, and then run back to their cabins in screams. It brought us back to our own days at camp, when we were the little kids in scout uniforms, begging to hear just one more, promising that we were brave and wouldn't get too scared that time. Those times were long ago, but they were memories all of us held close to our hearts. And now that we had all grown up and become counselors ourselves, we got to know what it felt like to be on the other side of the story. After sharing the details of the prank, Dominic and I parted ways, my friend going back to his house and I going to the counselor's bunk. I remembered the first time that I had heard the story of the Bellium. My great aunt had told it to me while we were on a vacation in the mountains. Back then, I hung on to every word and truly believed them. As a child, I would have never dared to play a joke on a camper in fear that I would meet the Bellium myself. Now that I had grown up though, I no longer held on to that fear. I knew it was just an old wives' tale that moms and grandmas and aunts told the children to keep them out of trouble. I didn't need to abide by childish rules anymore. I charted down some things in my diary before sliding the book under my pillow and shutting my eyes. A loud boom from the window jolted me out of bed. Groggily rubbing my eyes, I glanced at the clock to see that it was midnight. Strangely, none of the other counselors were in bed. The bang from the window came again, followed by lightning. I wasn't expecting there to be a storm that night, but I suppose the weatherman couldn't always be right. Just as I was about to slip back into bed, I felt a familiar feeling. This is not the time to go to the bathroom, I thought scornfully, but I dragged myself back up and I ventured outside. Thunder crashed around me as I raced through the mud and into the bathroom building. Grateful that nobody was around, I went to relieve myself. As I had finished in the stall, however, I heard something coming into the bathroom. At first, I thought there must have been another counselor or a camper that needed to go too. I felt bad for whoever it was. Trekking through that storm sucked. I came out of the stall to find a girl that I had never seen before. She rocked back and forth and clutched a letter in her hand. A wide grin stretched across her face and she whispered, "They're all dead." Frustrated with what must have been a prank set up by the children of the camp, I started to berate the girl, until she disappeared right before my very eyes. Bewildered, I made a dash from the bathroom to the yard, but I stopped dead in my tracks. All around me were the strewn bodies of my fellow counselors and camp attendees. Even the girl that I had talked to just hours ago about the prank was laying in a pool of blood. I dropped to my knees and screamed, but that wasn't the right move. A loud thumping sound came from the woods, and before I knew it, I was face to face with the Bellium. I jumped up with a start, heart racing, and coming down from adrenaline, I couldn't help but laugh. I really needed to watch what stories I told those kids. If they were giving me nightmares, they would surely scare a bunch of preteens. Sighing, I looked at the clock to see that it was midnight. Lightning flashed from a nearby window, illuminating the room. The other counselors were safe and sound in their beds. From the closet, however, was a strange noise. It almost sounded like the footsteps from my dream. But that wasn't possible, was it? The Bellium wasn't real. I turned over and I heard the noises again. Petrified, I grabbed my phone and started to write this story. I hope it gets to the right person, so they'll reconsider pulling a prank like I foolishly did. I don't know what's going to happen next, but the closet door is starting to open. Humans have a natural fear of the dark. The dark is one of our biggest enemies. The dark is what we fear the most. As we got stronger, we feared the dark less and we could fight the unknown in the dark. However, the fear has always lingered in our animal brains. The part of our brains that tells us information that saves our lives. The one that tells us to fight or flight. The ones that makes us check twice to see if that really is a floating ghost, or just a pile of clothes in the dark. And you never ignore this part of your brain. One day, you might regret it like I did. I take walks with my dog, from 3 a.m. to 3:33 a.m. The illogical side of my brain always tells me not to, but the illogical side says that nothing bad would happen. My dog is a German Shepherd and I am a 6'9" male. I don't believe in ghosts and I doubt muggers would try and rob me if they were ever to come by. I walk straight and take a right turn to circle back to my house. There is a forest at this turn. I never really look at it, but I make sure to walk a bit faster when my back is turned. This time, I decided to go into the forest in the dark. My instincts, the illogical side of my brain, made up scary images and ideas to scare me away from the pitch black forest. It even leaked into my logical side of my brain. I stood there. I couldn't move. I breathed in for 4 seconds and then breathed out and walked. "Stop! Don't walk!" I heard. It was my own voice that called out to me. The voice in my head. My subconscious. I guess it was trying to prevent me from walking into a death trap, but I carried on. I walked on the path, surrounded by trees. I couldn't see the sky. I couldn't see beyond the trees. Heck, I could barely see in front of me. It was cold and my dog practically hugged my leg. I was sweating and I decided to walk back. I was only 8 meters into the forest yet when I looked back. I couldn't see the exit, nor the path, just more trees. I heard a twig break. I snapped behind me and saw nothing out of the ordinary, and then a couple of leaves had crunched. I turned back. Nothing out of the ordinary. I walked in that direction, hoping that I would see the path again. I turned in my phone for light. It also said 3:16 a.m. A large tree branch broke off, and a scream about 80 meters followed right after. It was like a woman screaming for her life. It came closer and louder. It wasn't long before I realized that it was coming from my direction. I took off the leash of my dog and I said run. I bolted opposite the screaming. My dog right beside me, terrified as much as I was. I ran as quickly as I could with all the trees in my way. The screaming suddenly stopped. I kept running but eventually slowed down. I turned to my dog, only to see nothing there. I stupidly shouted, "Maxie!" I regretted it as a voice behind me spoke. It was a chilling, deep voice. "Greg," it spoke. I turned around slowly to see a dark figure with red eyes. How do you know my name?" I whimpered. "Greg, you should have listened to me," it spoke. The red eyes connected with a line. It was then I realized that it was its mouth. It grinned from ear to ear with its red mouth. It showed its teeth, dark red and sharp. Its eyes opened. It was a red outline with white around a purple spot. "You should have listened to me, Greg." It spoke again, but its mouth didn't move. I checked my phone. 3:16. I looked back up and it was slightly closer. No way was it still the same minute. That was impossible. "Tick-tock, Greg. Time's running out." It spoke to me once again as it took another step forward. I say another step, but I looked down and it had no legs. "Time's running out, Greg." What is that supposed to mean?" I asked with a shiver. "Time's up." It spoke before it jumped at me. Its face opened up, and I felt a large mouth bite down on my neck. I blacked out for a solid 2 seconds, and then I awoke in front of the forest. I checked the time. 3:16 a.m. I felt my dog beside me as happy as ever. I took a deep breath and I looked at the forest. I saw the monster there, with its face smiling at me. It stared into me as it slowly disappeared back into the forest. I ran back home with my dog. I checked the mirror with the light on it to see a faint scratch mark. The lights went out. I shut my eyes. Usually, I would carry on doing what I was doing until it became impossible in the dark. But no way was I about to disobey my instincts again by looking into a mirror in the dark. The lights came back on. I fell asleep with the lights on. The next day, I was talking to my girlfriend who was French. She told me that when she was younger, she was on a bridge and had experienced something similar to what I had experienced. My heart sank and I asked her what it meant. She was surprised and said that it had translated to call of the void, where your brain imagines something stupid like jumping off a cliff. My hand went to my neck where I saw the mark. I felt nothing, although I should have. "Is there something on my neck?" I asked her. "No," she replied swiftly, as if nothing was wrong. I went back on my walk again. For the last time, this time, I brought my girlfriend. I said it would be romantic or whatever if we did, and she accepted. I walked to the forest and I looked at it. I saw the monster's face. My girlfriend asked what I was looking at. Clearly, she couldn't see it. She said that she wanted to walk into the forest a bit, but I denied it after what had happened. She said that she felt something telling her not to do it, but she wanted an adrenaline spike. She walked right in. The last thing I heard was these screams of her, the same screams that I had heard earlier. They found her body mangled and ripped apart. They say it was from a bear, but I knew better. I never walked into the forest. Instead, I imagined what would happen and it stopped me. My girlfriend couldn't say the same. She denied her instincts and paid the price. She walked into the dark like I almost did. Listen to your instincts. Fear the dark.